In today's video, I'm going to be taking on Grounded 2, but with a twist. We are playing on Woe, the hardest difficulty. This will put my Grounded skills to the test in the hardest difficulty the game has to offer against some brand new creatures and all new bosses in Grounded 2. Will I be able to beat the challenge? How many times will I die along the way? Leave your guesses in the comments below. I started out by making the world, which was, of course, in Woe difficulty. In this challenge, we have 3 goals. Complete the mixer, beat the stranger, and finally, beat Axel. I awoke inside the snack bar facility as normal and headed down the elevator to grab my Scabby 2K. The all-new version just for Grounded 2. Heading further into the tutorial, I grabbed some basic resources before analysing each one, allowing me to make a pebblet spear and head to the next stage. For this part, I took out some mites and then answered a call from Burgle, who'd been beheaded. We needed to save him ASAP. After leaving the tutorial area, I began by following the quest markers, which took me to this ranger outpost. Here, I was able to grab my Omni tool. This replaces the tools in the game with a new all-in-one tool that doesn't even take up an inventory slot. Next, I grabbed a weed stem and grass plank and used the resource analyzer to analyze both of them, giving me a bunch of recipes, including the all-important workbench, which we would need to craft anything and everything in the game. The first thing I made with this workbench was, of course, the clover armor, as getting protection as soon as possible was very important as we were on Woe. We would die in a single hit to most enemies without it. I headed through a cave to answer a phone call from Sloan, allowing me to now access the Ranger Station, which is this game's version of the ASL from Grounded 1. This contains the Omni tool upgrades that we need to progress, so I instantly upgraded to the Tier 1 hammer, allowing me to now harvest rocks and acorns. Next on the agenda was chopping down some grass, as this allowed me to get grass seeds. While doing this, I managed to somehow find a fluffy dandelion trinket. These always seem to appear when you aren't looking for them, but hey, I'll take it. With these grass seeds, I was now able to unlock the Tier 1 shovel for the Omni tool, meaning we could harvest clay with it now too. To start a small base, I set up a lean-to along with a trail marker so that I could always find my way home. I then headed south and began to collect acorns, as we would need these for chests and armor, but I quickly got distracted by a bombardier beetle. I decided to be brave and try to take on a relatively tough enemy for this early on in the game. After a lot of dodging and patience, however, I was able to take him down, making sure not to get blown up by his posthumous explosion. This gave us bombardier parts and a boiling gland, both of which would be useful for progressing in this world. Next up was an orb weaver. These guys hit hard, but are relatively easy to parry, but they can also block, meaning I had to use the charged attacks to break their blocks, allowing me to hit them. While fighting him, I unlocked Parry Master, one of the best mutations in the game, and after finishing him off, I was able to loot him and get 3 chunks, which we would need for some of the best armor and weapons in the game later on. Once back at the Ranger Station, I had so many items that it was hard to choose which to analyze first, but luckily it was late enough that I was able to sleep and analyze another 4 items after waking up, meaning we had a bunch of new recipes, including the War Hamlet that I decided to craft. This was because I currently didn't have a smashing weapon, and this would be the perfect one to take on this ladybug. This fight went smoothly, and I was able to get 4 parts and a head on the first try. Continuing the story, I headed into the snack bar anthill. While heading inside, I decided we should take on some red ants, as we would need their parts for building things such as the spinning wheel. These guys are easy to stun, and since they're weak to the spear, they aren't too hard to take out. This also unlocked Javelineer, which shows just how much I've been relying on this spear early on in the game. I grabbed our first milk molar before taking out a soldier ant at the end of the cave, allowing me to grab the buried treasure chest containing our first optical disc. I headed back to the Ranger Station and inserted this optical disc into it, unlocking new things in the science shop, including the hatchery, which I instantly bought, along with a couple of other things. With the hatchery unlocked, I wasted no time in building it, and I now needed a red soldier ant egg to get my first mount. While at my base, I also constructed the ant nest to store my future pet in. While keeping a bee, I saw this. Into the ant nest now, which was guarded by a couple of red soldier ants. These guys constantly block, making it extremely hard to get a hit in on them. I started getting swarmed by ants from both in front and behind me, so I had to retreat outside. Unfortunately, I focused too much on the worker ant and the soldier attacked me from the side, causing me to take my first death to an ant, of all things. After taking my first death, I spent a molar on increasing my health and then headed back to take them on again. This time, I was able to separate them a bit more easily and take them down. Once back at the base, I was able to put together a spinning wheel, which allowed me to spin some silk rope. I made myself a canteen for water storage, and then crafted one of my most hated weapons in Grounded 1, the mosquito needle. I feel sick just saying those words. I then made myself the Crimson Buckler, a brand new shield inside of Grounded 2. I tested my new weapons out on a couple of spiderlings and randomly got the gold card in the process. I used a couple more molars that I had gathered to further boost my stamina and health, making me slightly more durable. Another bombardier down, although this time I forgot about the explosion from the afterlife. Ouch. With the parts collected, I was able to make Orb Weaver leggings, an Orb Weaver chestplate, and an acorn helmet. On top of that, I made the Bomb Buckler shield, giving us a whole new defensive loadout that would hopefully keep us alive for longer. With this new gear, I was able to make it to the end of the anthill and grab a red soldier ant egg, which I now had to take home. Luckily, I'd taken out all of the ants on the way in, so the way out was a lot more chill. Although I was close to dehydrating. Once I'd made it home, I started the hatching process. While out exploring, I got hacked by the mysterious stranger as her minions were nearby. I just wanted some blueberries, but it looks like I have bees to deal with. I started the fight with a huge parry to stun the bee, dealing massive damage. Then, using my all-new Crimson Saber, I was able to take it out easily. This meant I could collect a bunch of blueberry chunks, which I definitely needed. Once home again, I made a drying rack using the bombardier parts from earlier and hung up the newly acquired berry chunks so that they could dry. I also made a dew collector to solve our dehydrating problem. Once dried, I took the berry leather and used it in the ranger station to upgrade to a tier 2 axe on my Omni tool. Since our pet ant had hatched, it was time to give him a name. The chat suggested the name Seabiscuit, which I thought was great, and so that's what we went with. Now in WoW, if a pet goes down and bleeds out, then they're gone forever. So let's hope this isn't the first in a long list of pet names. Using my new pet, I was able to chop down a bunch of grass. Sadly, the game didn't like this, so it decided to crash. Back in the world now, and back to collecting grass planks as I wanted to build a basic base to store our stuff in, and so decided to use my ultimate storage room guide for Grounded 2. But without all of the chests, which, now that I think about it, is kind of the whole point of a storage room. I made sure to carefully place everything exactly where I wanted it to be, and even though it looked a little empty after, there was plenty of room to expand in the future if we ever needed to. With that sorted, it was time to progress with the main quest by talking to Salone, who gave me a new set of coordinates, which I immediately set off for. Once I arrived, I used the buggy to chop through the roots, and was then attacked by some rather rude scorpions. These weren't difficult to take out, but it did make me realise that buggy-friendly fire is on WoW, so my bomb buckler shield was actually damaging Seabiscuit. Now I could finally head inside the cave, where I was greeted by a rather aggressive Orc Scorpion Jr. Luckily, after parrying with my shield, this scorpion was easily stunned, allowing me to get a bunch of hits in with my mosquito needle before stunning it once again, allowing me to finish the fight. Inside of this cave, I was able to grab the recipe for the Northern Shredders, the snack bar optical disc, a chest full of goodies, and a milk molar. But this didn't seem to make the masked stranger very happy. Once home, I inserted the optical disc, unlocking new stuff in the science shop. I instantly purchased the smithing station, spike strips, and brat burst, as they are all an essential part of the game and I would need each for something in the future. First was the smithing station, which I built straight away and instantly used to upgrade and repair my mosquito rapier. I then made myself the Weaver daggers, one of the most powerful new weapons inside of Grounded 2, which I instantly put onto my hotbar. The next purchase I built was these spike strips, as building 2 of these would help me progress to the next phase in the story. This caused our first base raid, meaning I had to take out a bunch of orc creatures. Not only that, but I had to take them down quickly in order to revive Seabiscuit. We didn't want to lose him this early on. After a tough battle, I was able to come out on top and revive our buggy before we lost him forever. This completed yet another step in the main quest, putting us just a bit closer to our final goal. As I had acquired the recipe from the Northern Shredders earlier, I decided to build them, as they are a great tier 2 slashing weapon, which I definitely needed, as I didn't have one on me right now. I tested them out on an Orc Weaver, and as you can see, they hit really hard. This gained me access to another Ranger station, which contained a bunch of heals for me, along with unlocking the fast travel to the Ranger station at the trash heap. I then headed to the Ranger station at the trash heap so that both ends of the fast travel were unlocked, so we could easily travel across the map. While in this area, I also found and fought a giant northern scorpion, which I was able to take down, grabbing some essential drops that I needed and somehow a trinket on my very first kill. Heading further north, I went into the hedge to break down some lingonberries which I would need, and then followed the branches up using my daggers to get across the webs and make it onto the frisbee, where I found 2 orc bombardier beetles, which I swiftly took down, allowing me to hack the orc transmitter, meaning we had 3 more to go, as there were 4 in total. Before leaving the hedge area, I also decided to grab the bushwhacker bow in case I needed it later. When jumping down, the game wouldn't let me deploy a tuft, as I was too close to the leaves. Thus, I took my second death on the world to fall damage. It's also worth mentioning that on WoW, you drop everything in your inventory, not just your resources like in medium and mild. So I was on a mission to get my stuff back, with only a set of armor and some daggers. Luckily, I was able to grab my backpack, but while doing so, I was jumped by a stink bug. Thankfully, I was able to escape with my life and even grab some science on the way. After grabbing another milk molar, I was jumped by an Orb Weaver Jr. I was starving, so had no stamina, and I missed my parry, causing me to get stunned. This allowed the Orb Weaver Jr. to finish me off before I could do anything, leading to our 3rd death so far. Once I respawned, I instantly whistled for my buggy, as I knew Seabiscuit would have no chance of winning against an Orb Weaver Jr., and I had to save him. I managed to sneak my way past the Orb Weaver Jr. to grab all of my gear, and then quickly ran away.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
The next day, after using the lingonberries to make leather, I was able to visit the Ranger station and use this to unlock the tier 2 Omni Hammer, which would be essential for progressing further in the story. Speaking of progress, I was also able to craft the Weaver helmet, completing the armor set, making me even stronger defensively than ever before. With that, it was time to head back out, this time to the picnic table for the first time. There was another orc transmitter here, and it's our job to hack it. I took out the orc weevils on the way up, making sure not to get blown to pieces. I grabbed myself the spicy candy, as I knew I would need it for recipes, and unlocking an important mutation. I also opened up the briefcase, as I wanted the molar inside, along with even more candy. Inside of the cooler box, I found yet another molar, before heading out and up to the top of the picnic table. Once here, I just had to take down one more enemy, the Orc Ladybug. This wasn't easy, as these hit really hard, so even one missed parry could kill me. Luckily, I was able to parry every single attack, meaning that all we had left to do was hack the Orc Receiver, and we now had 2 out of 4. We were halfway done. Back down on the ground now, and while taking on a Cockroach, Seabiscuit went down. This was bad news, as I was weak, so I healed up and locked in. This Cockroach was full health, and I only had 60 seconds to take it down and rescue our beloved buggy. I started by taking down the nymphs, and then it was just me and the roach. Being dehydrated definitely didn't help, but with help from my Orb Weaver daggers, I was able to take down the roach and rescue Seabiscuit with 20 seconds to go. Sadly, he went down again straight away, but this at least reset the timer, making it much easier to get him back up this time. Fittingly, this unlocked the first stage of Reliable Friend, a title I felt I deserved. I made a quick trip home to unlock the tier 2 shovel on the Omni tool, meaning I could collect gum and treasure now before heading back out and into a deep dark cave to find some red ant eggs. I quickly rushed home and instantly used these to craft a bunch of brat bursts, as bombs are another essential tool in the park for getting into super secret areas. With this all-important new tool, there was only one place I could be heading next. I had one weapon type I was missing, and I knew exactly what I needed to fill the slot. I headed deep into another cave where I was greeted by a bunch of dangerous scorpions. I thought I'd be able to take them down, but sadly, they got me first. Not only that, but they also killed Seabiscuit, and I was now halfway across the map with no way of rescuing him. Luckily, there was a glitch in the game at this point where whistling a downed buggy caused them to teleport to you, so I did exactly that, and as if by magic, Seabiscuit appeared, allowing me to save him. Phew. That was close. Back to the cave now, where I grabbed my stuff and ran out, using Seabiscuit as a shield, and then headed back into the cave, where I found a cracked rock that I was able to use a brat burst on. This unlocked a secret room containing a chest with some goodies, but more importantly, it had the pinch whacker. Arguably one of the best weapons in the game was now mine. Returning home now, as I had to upgrade my Weaver daggers before analysing a crow feather to unlock the simple bed recipe, which I then built as I needed the additional buffs from sleeping in it. The next important thing I needed to progress was a gas mask, so I grabbed the bushwhacker and some mint arrows that I'd found and went out to look for a stink bug. Once I'd found one, I began shooting it with charged attacks, which did surprisingly a lot less damage than I had expected it to. Although these arrows did freeze the stink bug, which allowed my shots to deal huge damage and take down this enemy relatively easily. This gave us the stink bug part we needed to make our first gas mask. Continuing the story now, I took out some more orc enemies, giving me access to 2 more milk molars, which I instantly spent to unlock another mutation slot, as I was starting to unlock a lot of useful ones that I wanted equipped. Next, it was time to put our new gas mask to good use by heading into the toxic anthill. This place wasn't very friendly, and I was quickly swarmed by a large crowd of ants. Luckily, I'd brought my all new pinchbacker along with my bomb buckler shield. These both deal huge AoE damage, meaning all of these ants got taken out easily. When you compare this to my first death against just 3 or 4 ants earlier in the game, it shows just how far we've come in such a short period of time. Into the actual toxic part of the anthill now, which mostly has cockroaches rather than ants. I made sure to pick up all of the raw science and upgrade rocks I could find, as I knew we'd be needing as much as we could get our hands on for both of these resources. Eventually, I made it to the end of the anthill, where I found a cockroach queen. This was by far our most dangerous foe so far, so I had to prepare. I made sure to equip any and all mutations that I thought would help me and went to battle. This fight was a weird one because the Cockroach Queen has a lot of health, but she doesn't really hit you that often. When she does though, it hurts a lot, so I had to make sure to keep healing every time I got hit. I was also doing a horrible job of avoiding the acid, and thus taking way too much damage from sizzling. Eventually, I was able to take it down, but that was only the start, as now she got back up for phase 2. Luckily, she kinda just got stuck in the corner, allowing me to finish her off easily and take her loot. While in here, I made sure to grab the Gloom Skewer, even though I knew I would never use it, and of course I picked up the Optical Disc, which was the whole reason we were here to begin with. On the way home, I was raided by orc creatures, which I was completely unprepared for, but luckily, most of the creatures were just orc weevils, which were easy to deal with. There was an orc weaver, but it just got stuck in a weed stem, so I was able to deal with it after everything else was taken care of. Finally back home, I could insert the new disc and unlock a bunch of base decorations, which were pretty useless in all honesty. It was the next day now, and the devs had updated the game so that all passive creatures forgot how to move. So I was able to go to nearby mushrooms and find as much weevil meat as I would ever need. Next up was the ceremony pillar, with this one having 2 orc blue butterflies on top. Luckily, I was able to take them down with relative ease, and then I collected the crow feather on top, somehow managing to get the trinket in the process. While walking around, a larva used some fly hacks to get a hit in on me.
I'm on to you.
My next task was to climb to the top of the trash can and hack yet another transmitter, leading me back to the orc bees in the berry bushes from earlier. It was at this moment I realised that I'd forgotten to hack the transmitter while atop the lectern. While riding around on Seabiscuit, I started getting attacked by every creature left and right, and Seabiscuit ended up going down, leaving me to take them on all alone. I had to deal with mosquitoes and a giant full-size scorpion, but at the end of it all, I was able to rescue my buggy once again. My next location was a cave, where Seabiscuit managed to walk into a bomb I had dropped, downing him once again. He wasn't the smartest buggy around. The next enemy I wanted to take on may be one of the most dangerous in Grounded 2 at the moment. It's time for our first wolf spider. These guys are huge and tanky, and they hit hard. So I had to be super careful and make sure to parry as many attacks as possible. After a long fight, I was successfully able to take out my first one, giving me a bunch of parts as I got super lucky. While in this area, I remembered to head back to the top of the lectern and hack the orc transmitter, meaning we'd now hacked all 4 on the map, and the next step was to overload the mixer. The first time was so nice, I had to do it twice, taking out another wolf spider. I then headed into its lair as there was another optical disc hidden inside. Deep within, I found some gum that contained the Crimson Avenger sword, which we wouldn't be using, but it's cool to have nonetheless. Even deeper now, and after a bit of searching, I was able to find and collect the optical disc from within the spider den, meaning we only had 2 to go, the ice cream cart and the statue lab. But these 2 were by far the hardest. With the wolf spiders I'd killed so far, I was now able to make the Wolf's Bane daggers, which are one of, if not the best stabbing damage weapon in the game. But I wanted more. So I took down another wolf spider, and not quite. That's another death, actually. This attack literally didn't even hit me, by the way. Seabiscuit went down too, of course, so I had to whistle him and rescue him once again. I made it back to my loot, but there was a wolf spider guarding it. And let's just say, this didn't go well for me. Recovery attempt number 2, I was able to grab my stuff, but an orc raid arrived at the same time. So I tried to run away from the raid, and this just completely crashed my game. Turns out there was a bug that meant running from orc raids crashed your game, so I had no choice but to fight this raid. I made sure to take down the bees first, as these hit extremely hard. Next, I focused on the small scorpions, as I knew my pinch whacker would make light work of them. Finally, we had the orc weaver. But the wolf spider decided to run in and interfere midway through, so I calmly walked away and went to help Seabiscuit. Once the wolf spider finished the raid for me, I was safely able to walk away without dying or crashing. Once home, I used my newly obtained wolf spider parts to make the leggings and chestplate, massively improving my defense once again, but sadly, I didn't have the resources for the helmet just yet. I made repairs to the rest of my gear and headed back to get revenge on the wolf spider that had killed me earlier. One more to go in the far south of the map, and this gave me everything I needed to craft the wolf hood, completing the armor set, and hopefully making me harder to kill than ever before. Since I was at my base, I figured it would be a good time to put the spider den disc into the ranger station. This allowed us to unlock some new cooking recipes and furniture once again. Not really much to actually help us progress the game, sadly. My next task was to take on the ice cream cart biome. So I began by making some sticky blazing brew to keep warm myself. I then made a full set of fuzzy armor, meaning we should have everything we need to enter this biome and not freeze to death. This has to be one of the best looking areas in Grounded 2, by the way. Just look at this place. Stunning. Once inside, I wasted no time and went straight for the body to grab the optical disc, frostbitten key, and any other loot this bozo had. Just next to the body was a bunch of chocolate, which I also had to farm, as I knew I was going to need some more powerful smoothies for the enemies we would be taking on later. I headed to the top layer of the cart, where I dug up the treasure chest and used the key we had just obtained to open it, giving us 2 mint globs. It was time for the ice sickle's defense. I threw down an Everchar flare because these keep you warm when near them, and used my pinch whacker and bomb buckler to begin taking out scorpions. This whole defense event is pretty easy at the moment, as these guys just seem to get stuck in the ground a lot and just don't attack the icicles at all. Sure, some of the bigger scorpions were a bit tougher to take down, but it was nothing my shield and pinch whacker couldn't handle. After a long fight, I was able to successfully complete the defense and got myself the ice sickles, and also unlocked stage 1 of Guard Dog, an essential mutation to help in progressing the story further. I headed home and put the optical disc into the Ranger station, which allowed me to buy some useful stuff this time, like the fresh storage, which I instantly went and built as I wanted to store my food here to stop it decaying as we were in WoW, so it was decaying super fast. I also made a full set of sizzling armor as we would need it for the fire pit area. Speaking of which, I began heading that direction when I got distracted and went under a giant backpack nearby as the game was leading me down here for the main quest. Turns out there were some orc creatures we had to kill, and I don't know why, but I swear the orc enemies down here hit harder than any other enemies anywhere else on the map. Regardless, my game decided to completely freeze, which to no surprise, got me killed, adding another death to the tally and making me extremely unhappy. I made my way back to my loot and it turns out my backpack had fallen under the map. Now, I was even more unhappy. With none of my loot on me, I still proceeded into the pipe and took out the orc cockroach nymphs inside. I went deeper and took out the Orc Weaver Jr. 2, successfully getting my revenge, for which my reward was 100 raw science. Fire pit time. I put on my new sizzling armor and headed inside. These Wolfsbane daggers were doing a lot of the work here against the enemies. The armor was supposed to help with the sizzle, but even with a full set, I had to keep munching on mint shards to make sure I didn't burn whilst collecting the heatwave weapon. As I left, we got raided once again, this time by some bombardiers, who were literally max difficulty snipers as they took me out from a mile away with a perfect shot. Next up, it was time to prepare for the mixer. I began by gathering weed stems and used them to build a basic defense around it. This would protect the mixer if I wasn't nearby to defend it from the onslaught of enemies. I also placed a bunch of random walls around as the enemies in Grounded are dumb and like to attack these walls rather than just walking around them. And with that, I felt like I was ready. I sent Seabiscuit home as I knew I wouldn't have time to revive him in this mayhem. I drank a bunch of smoothies to buff my stats in preparation for the incoming enemies. The Pinch Whacker was my go-to weapon as it hits the hardest, and the AoE effect is really good for large groups of creatures, which is exactly what this was. It started out relatively easy with orb weavers and ants. I had to be careful with the ladybugs as these hit really hard, so I had to make sure not to get snuck up on by one of them. Next up was the giant scorpion, which I took my time to parry before leaping into a huge counter combo, killing him before he could react. I headed back around to the other side of the mixer to take out a bunch of scorpions, ants and spiderlings, making sure we weren't going to fail. After these, one enemy remained, but it was the toughest enemy for the entire mixer, the Orc Mantis. Luckily, she kinda didn't care about attacking me and was really interested in staring at the mixer, allowing me to take her down easily. This gave me 3,000 raw science, but more importantly, took us one step further to completing the game. Our next step was the statue area. I began by heading into the PVC pipe, which leads up to here where I met my first foe, Major Diesel. This Orc Stinkbug stood no chance against me though, and our first foe had fallen. Next up was Lieutenant Blade. This Orc Mantis was no pushover and nearly killed me as soon as the fight started, but with our ice sickles, it wasn't long before he too met his end. My inventory was filling up, so I used Seabiscuit as a chest and deposited a bunch of items into him as I was now at the lab and he was unable to follow me inside. He'd served me well up to now, but this mission was all on me. Once inside, there was a whole host of orc creatures waiting for us, from weevils to lava to red soldier ants. I took them out one by one until, oops, I got snuck up on and blown to pieces, killing me instantly. I collected my belongings and headed deeper, taking me to our next foe, General Berserker. This was an orc cockroach queen, and she was not gonna be easy. She was hitting me hard and fast and I was having trouble keeping up. Luckily, I had my trusty Pinch Whacker along with some chunky smoothies to heal. This weapon also allowed me to stun her, dealing massive damage while stunned. After she got back up for the second stage, she didn't last very long, and I was able to loot her, getting the Roach Rage trinket and gold card. I crawled through the ventilation system and took the elevator, meaning we'd reached our final destination, the top. floor. I made sure to take my time and prepare as much as possible, as I hadn't even done this fight on solo yet, let alone on WoW difficulty. I started with mutations, for which I would use Assassin, Parry Master, Cardio Fan, and Fresh Defense. This would maximize stamina, while also reducing sizzle damage from her Kultana. The Icicles would of course be my weapon of choice, and I had a bunch of smoothies ready to buff myself up. I drank one of each to buff myself as much as possible in preparation for this behemoth of a task. And then I scanned my Scabby. She hopped down and instantly started to attack me. I was missing every parry and it was hurting a lot. I quickly realized I needed to be the one on the offensive, so I just started swinging, dealing massive damage and taking her out of her first phase very quickly. The second phase began and I got stunned right at the start, allowing her to land a big hit. I tried to escape her fiery circle, but it engulfed me and killed me instantly. Time for attempt number 2. Same again, I took her first phase down by just swinging at her and critting her as much as I could to stop her from hitting me. In phase 2, I backed up and played smarter, making sure to avoid the sizzle attack by dodging at the right time. Her attacks were still hitting me hard though, and she was chasing me across the arena. Luckily, I was able to find a nice rhythm to get her to half health when she ran, summoning Bandit the Orc Wolf Spider. This guy hit hard, but it was just a wolf spider. As long as I took my time, I would be fine. I made sure to land my parries and eventually took it out, beating the final boss on our second attempt. This was no easy fight. This unlocked the final room in the lab, which contained the final optical disc, a key, a recipe, and Burgle's head. He's alive! After talking to Sloan, this meant we had completed the main story for now, but our journey was far from over as we still had so much more to explore. With no time to waste, I headed under Burgle's body to grab an Orb Weaver egg, and then took it home, only to realise I hadn't put the disc in yet. Once I did, I was able to unlock the Orb Weaver buggy. Back to the hatchery, where I now put the egg in to incubate, meaning we just had to wait. I proceeded to explore the map, gathering the final 2 milk molars, meaning we now had every stat maxed out. While dropping down from a rock, my buggy fell and took damage, kicking me off and killing me instantly. After a long wait, our buggy was ready, and I was able to zoom around even faster than before. Finding room for this spider nest was the hardest part, as it feels like this thing is impossible to place anywhere. We named the buggy Bugatti, which was another racehorse, but also because Bug-atti. Get it? It's funny.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
This guy was faster and stronger than the soldier ant, and we would need him for our next challenge. This next part of the challenge was recorded a lot later than the rest, as there was a new update to the game, so I began by heading over to the nearest mantis spawn, as I now needed their parts. As you can see, this first attempt went extremely well. I swapped back to my Widow armor and headed back for a second try, which went more along the lines of what I had expected, destroying the mantis, giving me a head and 3 parts. We took out another and got 5 parts and a claw this time. This gave me enough resources to craft the entire set of armor and equipment. I then upgraded my base with the all-new Scorpion bed, which, as you can see, has a lot of intricate detailing to it. Off to the terrarium now, within which I was able to collect the store receipt, unlocking the poached roach roast recipe. Along with this, I also found a tarantula chunk. I took down a garden snail, which gave me the slime I would need to now cook the poached roach roast. Once I had it, I headed to the tarantula arena, and we were ready for a fight. It's worth noting, this would be my first time trying the fight on solo, and my first time trying it on WoW difficulty. I began by sorting out my mutations, choosing to go with Barbarian, Mithridatism, Cardio Fan, and Reliable Friend, as reviving my buggy would be the key to success. I ate a mac and bees, and then summoned the boss. It was time. As it arrived, I drank through my smoothies, making sure to buff myself up, and began dealing damage. Parrying his huge legs was extremely tough, so instead, I opted to try and dodge them. I quickly stunned the boss and hopped onto his back, allowing me to deal huge damage to the weak point, burning through the first phase extremely quickly. Phase 2 came around and I got him stunned again, but this time Bugatti went down in the process. I was dealing huge damage and managing to stay on his back until I flew off and died instantly. Ouch. Time for attempt 2. Same thing, drink the smoothies, then chase it around until I can get the initial stun and beat the first phase in a single cycle. With the second phase done, it was time for phase 3, and as he bulldozed towards me, I blocked, but it wasn't enough, and I was killed in a single hit. Attempt number 3. Surely this was the one. First phase was as smooth as butter, but I almost overstayed my welcome on his back. For phase 2, I dodged the spines and closed the distance, but he ran, so I did the same again before parrying some attacks, allowing me to stun him. I got huge damage in and decided to stay on his back to try and get another stun. I was able to until eventually he kicked me off, but it was fine, I was alive. I got yet another stun in and was able to finish phase 2, giving me time to revive Bugatti in preparation for phase 3 before he bled out forever. I did my best to take out as many caterpillars as possible, but he was still able to eat a couple, healing his health. All of the bugs dropped into the arena, but my plan was to ride my buggy and ignore them until Axel came back to use them as my allies. That didn't really work, as he kind of killed most of them before coming back into the arena. He started bulldozing the arena again, and I tried to use this to jump on top of him, but I couldn't get it to work. Bugatti went down again, and it wasn't looking good. But I got a huge stun in by parrying. This allowed me to jump onto his back and finish him off, beating the tarantula boss for the first time in our Woe world. This gave me a bunch of loot, although sadly, no trinket or gold card. I headed home to sleep before analysing the all new parts we'd discovered, unlocking a whole new set of armour, weapons and furniture. But most importantly, all of our goals had now been achieved. We had beaten both of the bosses, and we had taken down the mixer, meaning we had finished the game on Woe difficulty for now. This is still early access, so you can expect me to beat the game on Woe many times in the future whenever they do big updates to the game. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on it, and I'll see you in the next Grounded 2 video. Have a great rest of your day.